The warning alarms screamed across New Haven Colony as the first alien ships appeared in the sky. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Liberty's Edge, watching through the viewport as dozens of silver vessels descended through the atmosphere, like deadly raindrops. "Sir, we're getting emergency signals from all sectors," reported Lieutenant Susan Davis, her fingers flying over the communication panel. "The aliens are hitting us everywhere at once." Morrison gripped the rail, his jaw tight. He had been expecting this day for months. The Zephyrian Empire had been moving through this sector of space, conquering human colonies one by one. Now it was New Haven's turn. "How many ships?" Morrison asked. "At least 40, maybe more," Davis replied. "Our scanners are having trouble getting exact numbers. Their technology is jamming our systems." Morrison nodded grimly. The Liberty's Edge was just a patrol vessel, designed for keeping peace between trading ships and dealing with pirates. It was never meant to fight a real war, but it was all they had. "Send a message to all civilian ships," Morrison ordered. "Tell them to evacuate immediately. Head for the outer system and don't look back." "Sir, we're getting a transmission from the alien fleet," Davis announced. "They want to talk." The main display flickered, then showed the face of an alien creature. Its skin was gray and smooth, with large black eyes that seemed to look right through Morrison. When it spoke, its voice was cold and mechanical through the translation system. "I am General Crystal of the Zephyrian Empire. You will surrender your colony immediately. Resistance is pointless. We have superior numbers and technology. Submit now, and your deaths will be quick." Morrison stepped forward, staring directly at the alien general. "This is Commander Jake Morrison of the New Haven Defense Force. We don't surrender. Ever." The alien's large eyes seemed to narrow. "You are making a mistake, human. You've studied your species. You are weak. You lack the strength for real war. Your emotions make you vulnerable." "Maybe," Morrison said. "But we're still not surrendering." General Crystal tilted his head, as if Morrison were an interesting puzzle. "Very well. We will take your colony by force." "When your people are dead, remember that you chose this fate." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. Sir Davis said quietly, "We should evacuate too. We can't fight 40 ships with one patrol vessel." Morrison looked at her, then at the other crew members. On the bridge, they were all young, barely out of the academy. Most had never seen real combat, but there was something in their eyes that made him proud. Fear, yes, but also determination. "We're not leaving," Morrison said. "This is our home. These people trust us to protect them." Down on the planet's surface, the first alien landing craft were touching down near the capital city. The colonists had built New Haven to be peaceful and beautiful, with parks and schools and homes where families could grow. Now alien soldiers were marching through those streets at the New Haven Military Academy. 17-year-old Amy Chen was in the middle of combat training when the alarm started. She and her fellow cadets had been practicing with training rifles. When their instructor, Sergeant Bill Murphy, burst into the room, "This is not a drill," Murphy shouted. "Alien forces are attacking the colony. All cadets report to the armory immediately." Amy felt her heart race, but she kept her voice steady. "What are our orders, Sergeant?" Murphy looked at the young faces around him. These were just kids, most between 15 and 18 years old. They had joined the academy to serve their colony, but nobody expected them to face real war so soon. "Defend the academy," Murphy said. "The aliens will try to capture this place to break our morale. We can't let that happen." 15-year-old Danny Rodriguez raised his hand. "Sergeant, are we really going to fight aliens?" "Yes, Rodriguez. That's what we trained for." 16-year-old Katie Williams checked her rifle with practiced ease. "How many aliens are there?" "Too many," Murphy admitted. "But that doesn't matter. What matters is that we do our duty." The cadets looked at each other, then nodded. They had trained for this moment, even if they never really believed it would come. Back in space, Morrison was coordinating the defense from his small ship. The civilian evacuation was going well, with most of the transport ships already heading for the outer system. but the alien fleet was closing in fast. "Sir, the aliens are targeting the mining platforms," Davis reported. "Off our resource production." Morrison studied the tactical display. The mining platforms were automated, but they were also the colony's main source of income. Without them, New Haven would die slowly, even if they survived the attack. "Launch all fighters," Morrison ordered. "Tell them to protect the platforms." As long as possible, 6 small fighter craft launched from the Liberty's edge, racing toward the alien ships. Morrison knew they wouldn't last long against superior technology. But every minute they bought was another minute for civilians to escape. On the planet, the first alien ground forces were advancing on the capital. The colonists had never built serious military defenses, thinking they were too far from any major conflicts to worry about invasion. They were learning how wrong they had been. But the people of New Haven were not helpless. Many were former military who had come here to build peaceful lives. Others were miners and construction workers, tough people who knew how to handle dangerous situations. They grabbed whatever weapons they could find and started fighting. Back, General Crichton watched the battle from his command ship, confident that victory would come soon. His forces had conquered dozens of human colonies, and they all followed the same pattern: initial resistance, then panic, then surrender. Humans were emotional creatures who cared more about survival than honor. "General," one of his officers reported, "the humans are fighting harder than expected. Our ground forces are meeting strong resistance in the capital." Crichton was not concerned. It is normal for primitive species to struggle briefly before, accepting defeat, continue the attack. But as the hours passed, something strange was happening. The human resistance was not collapsing. Instead, it seemed to be getting stronger. Reports came in of civilian volunteers joining the fight, of improvised weapons being used with deadly effect, coordinated attacks that showed surprising tactical skill at the military academy. Amy Chen and her fellow cadets had turned their school into a fortress. They used their knowledge of the building's layout to set up defensive positions, created booby traps in the hallways, and established communication with the main defense force. "Chen, take your squad and secure the south entrance," Sergeant Murphy ordered Rodriguez Williams. "You're with me on the north side." Amy nodded and led her team of younger cadets through the corridors they knew so well. These halls where they had studied and trained were now a battlefield, but they moved through them with confidence born of familiarity. "Remember your training," Amy told her squad as they took positions near the windows. "Controlled bursts, pick your targets, and watch each other's backs." The first alien soldiers appeared at the edge of the academy grounds, moving cautiously through the trees. They were tall and thin, with advanced armor and weapons that hummed with energy. But they moved like they were uncertain, as if they had not expected to find organized resistance here. Amy took aim through her rifle's scope, her fingers steady on the trigger. She thought of her parents in the capital, of her little brother, who had evacuated with the other children, of all the people counting on her and her fellow cadets to hold this line. The battle for New Haven had begun, and the aliens were about to learn something important about humanity. They were about to discover that humans would fight for their homes, their families, and their future with a determination that no amount of superior technology could overcome. The young cadets of New Haven Military Academy were ready to show the galaxy what human courage really meant. General Crichton stared at the battle reports with growing confusion. According to his calculations, the human colony should have surrendered 3 hours ago. Instead, the fighting was getting worse. "General, our ground forces report heavy casualties." "In Sector 7, his aide announced. "The humans are using mining equipment as weapons." "Mining equipment?" Crichton's voice showed his disbelief. "How can construction tools be effective against our advanced armor?" The aide brought up a video feed on the main screen. It showed human defenders using massive drilling machines to punch holes through alien vehicles. Industrial lifters were picking up enemy soldiers and throwing them into buildings. Even simple welding tools were being used to cut through alien armor. "These humans are using their entire civilization as a weapon," the aide said nervously. "They have turned every tool, every machine, every building into part of their defense." Crichton had conquered many worlds, but he had never seen anything like this. Most species fought with military equipment. When that was destroyed, they surrendered. but humans seemed to think everything around them could be used for war. On the planet's surface, Commander Morrison's ground teams were proving the alien general right. Lieutenant Susan Davis led a group of colonists who had converted their cargo haulers into armored vehicles. They welded metal plates onto the sides and mounted mining lasers on top. "Davis to all units," she said into her radio. "Remember, hit and run. Don't try to fight them head-on. Use the terrain." The colonists knew every street, every building, every tunnel in their city. They used this knowledge to appear where the aliens didn't expect them, strike hard, then disappear before the enemy could respond. At the spaceport, a group of mechanics had rigged fuel tankers to explode when alien ships tried to land. Residential district, families had turned their homes into sniper nests, using hunting rifles to pick off enemy soldiers from bedroom windows. But the biggest surprise was coming from the military. Academy Amy Chen crouched behind a overturned table in what used to be the Academy's dining hall. Through the broken windows, she could see alien soldiers moving carefully through the courtyard. They had been trying to take the Academy for 2 hours now, and they still had not made it past the outer buildings. "Chen, we've got movement on." The east side, whispered Danny Rodriguez through the radio. He was positioned in the library with 3 other cadets. "Copy that, Rodriguez." "Williams, what's your status?" Katie Williams replied from the gymnasium. "All quiet here, but I think they're planning something big. Too many of them are pulling back," Amy thought quickly. The aliens were probably regrouping for a major assault. She needed to do something to disrupt their plans. "All squads, listen up," Amy said. "They think we're just going to sit here and wait for them to attack. Wait. Show them they're wrong." 15 minutes later, the alien soldiers were shocked when the Academy's doors burst open and young humans came running out, firing as they moved.
Oh.
The cadets used their knowledge of the grounds to launch a coordinated attack that caught the enemy completely off guard. Amy led her squad in a charge toward the main alien position while Danny's team hit them from the side. Katie brought her group out through the underground tunnels, peering behind the enemy lines. The alien soldiers, who had been expecting to face scared children hiding in a building, suddenly found themselves surrounded by determined young warriors, who fought with tactical skill that amazed their officers. "Fall back," the alien squad leader ordered. These are not normal human offspring. The cadets pressed their advantage, driving the aliens away from the Academy grounds and even capturing some of their advanced weapons. When the dust settled, 17-year-old Amy Chen was holding an alien plasma rifle, studying how it worked. "Sergeant Murphy is going to love this," she said to Danny, who was examining an alien communication device. "Amy," Katie called from across the courtyard, "we've got prisoners." 3 alien soldiers sat on the ground, their hands secured behind their backs. They stared at the young humans with what looked like confusion and fear. "They keep looking at us like they can't believe what happened," Danny observed. Amy nodded. "I think they expected us to run and hide. They don't understand that we've been training for this our whole lives." The truth was, the Zephyrian Empire had never encountered anything like human military education. In their society, the young were kept safe and protected until they reached full maturity. The idea of training children to fight was completely foreign to them. Back in space, Morrison was having his own success with unconventional tactics. His small patrol ship should have been destroyed hours ago, but he was using the asteroid field near the colony to hide and strike at the alien fleet. "Sir, we've taken out 2 more of their fighters," reported his weapons officer, Lieutenant Tom Baker. "Good work, Baker. How are our missile supplies?" "Getting low, sir. Maybe 20 shots left." Morrison studied the tactical display. The alien fleet was still much larger than his small force, but they were getting frustrated. They kept trying to use their superior firepower to end the fight quickly. But Morrison refused to engage them directly. Instead, he used hit and run attacks, appearing from behind asteroids to fire a few shots, then disappearing again before the aliens could respond. It was working, but he knew it could not last forever. Sir Davis called from the communication station. "We're getting reports. From the surface, the cadets at the Academy have driven off another alien attack." Morrison smiled grimly. "Those kids are tougher than the aliens expected. Sir, there's something else. Our people have captured some alien prisoners. They want to interrogate them. Good. Maybe we can learn something about their plans. On the planet, the interrogation was revealing interesting information. The captured aliens were more confused than hostile. They kept asking questions that made no sense to their human captors. One alien asked through the translation device, "Where are their protectors?" Amy, who was helping with the questioning, looked puzzled. "We are fighting. We don't need anyone to protect us." "But you are not mature," the alien insisted. "Your development is not complete. How can you make war decisions?" "We've been training since we were 12, Amy explained. "We know how to fight." The alien seemed shocked by this answer. "Your species forces children to learn violence?" "Nobody forces us," Katie said. "We choose to serve our colony, want to protect our families and friends." The aliens looked at each other with what seemed like growing alarm. Through their translation devices, the humans could hear them talking in their own language. But it was clear they were upset about something. Meanwhile, General Crystal was receiving reports that made him increasingly uncomfortable. His ground forces were not just failing to advance, they were actually losing ground in some areas. The human resistance was getting stronger, not weaker. "General," his intelligence officer reported, "we have analyzed the human defensive patterns. They are not fighting like any species we have encountered before," explained Crystal ordered. "Most species we conquer have clear military and civilian populations. The military fights, the civilians hide, but these humans seem to have no such distinction. Everyone fights. Even their young participate in combat operations." Crystal studied the battlefield reports. It was true. Everywhere his forces went, they encountered resistance. It's not just from trained soldiers, but from farmers with hunting rifles, mechanics with improvised weapons, even children who fought with adult-level tactical skill. "Perhaps," the intelligence officer continued carefully, "we should consider a different approach. What do you suggest?" "The humans seem to value their offspring above all else. If we capture their young, particularly the ones at the military academy, we could use them to force a surrender." Crystal considered this. It made sense. Every species had something they valued more than victory. For humans, it seemed to be their children. "Very well," he decided. "Prepare a major assault on the academy. We will take their young as prisoners, and they will have to surrender." But as he gave the order, Crystal had no idea that he was about to make the biggest mistake of his military career. He was about to learn that taking human children was not a way to end the war quickly. It was a way to make the war much, much worse. General Crystal stood before his command staff, his large black eyes reflecting the strategic display that showed the human colony. 6 hours into what should have been a quick victory, his forces were still fighting street by street, building by building. "The assault on the academy begins in 1 hour," he announced to his officers. "This time we use overwhelming force, no more gradual advances. We take the entire facility at once and capture every young human inside." His tactical officer, Commander Vexkol, shifted uncomfortably. "General, our previous attempts to take the academy have resulted in heavy casualties. These young humans fight with unexpected skill, which is exactly why we must capture them," Crystal replied. "They're clearly important to human morale. Once we have them as prisoners, the adult humans will surrender to protect their offspring." The plan was simple in Crystal's mind. Every species in the galaxy protected their young above all else. Humans would be no different. He ordered 50 of his best troops, supported by heavy weapons and shield generators, to surround the academy completely. This time, there would be no escape routes. At the military academy, Amy Chen was checking ammunition supplies when the early warning sensors began screaming. The volume and intensity of the alerts told her everything she needed to know. "Is it?" she announced to her fellow cadets over the communication system. "They're coming with everything they have." Danny Rodriguez was positioned in the observatory tower, the highest point of the academy. Through his scope, he could see alien forces moving through the trees from every direction. "Amy, I count at least 50 soldiers, plus heavy equipment. They've got us completely surrounded." Katie Williams was in the basement armory, distributing the last of their ammunition. "We've got maybe 30 minutes of fighting time left with what we have," she reported. Sergeant Murphy had been wounded in the previous attack, but he was still conscious and giving orders from the medical bay. "Chen, you're in command now. Remember, you're training. Make every shot count." Amy felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. She was 17 years old, and now she was responsible for the lives of 43 fellow cadets, some as young as 14. But she also knew that if they fell, the aliens would use them to break the colony's resistance. "All squads, listen carefully," Amy said into her radio. "We've trained for this moment our entire lives. Today, we find out what we're really made of." The alien assault began with a bombardment that shook the entire academy. The building's walls, reinforced for training exercises, held against the energy weapons, but barely. Then came the ground assault. 50 alien soldiers advanced on the academy from all sides, their advanced armor gleaming in the afternoon sun. They expected to overwhelm the young humans quickly with superior numbers and firepower. Instead, they walked into the most carefully planned defense the cadets had ever organized. Amy had spent the previous hour studying every lesson she had ever learned about tactics and strategy. She divided her forces into 3 groups. One group would hold the main building, making the aliens think that was where all the defenders were located. The second group would use the underground tunnels to attack from behind. The third group, led by Amy herself, would make a desperate charge to capture alien equipment. The battle began when the aliens reached the outer courtyard. Hidden cadets opened fire from windows and doorways, forcing the enemy to take cover. But this was exactly what Amy had planned. "Group 2, execute flanking maneuver," she ordered. Danny led 12 cadets through the tunnel system that connected the academy to the old mining complex nearby. They emerged behind the alien lines and began attacking with captured alien weapons. From previous battles, the aliens, suddenly taking fire from behind, turned to face this new threat. That was when Amy led Group 3 in a direct assault on their heavy equipment. "Follow me," Amy shouted, running directly toward the alien shield generators that were protecting their heavy weapons. It was the kind of desperate, aggressive move that no military manual would recommend. It was also exactly the kind of move that worked because the enemy never expected it. Amy and 6 other cadets reached the alien equipment before the soldiers could react. Using explosives they had made from chemistry class supplies, they destroyed 2 shield generators and captured a heavy plasma cannon. But the victory came at a cost. The aliens, realizing they were losing control of the battle, called in air support. 3 alien fighter craft began strafing the academy grounds. "Take cover," Amy ordered, but there was nowhere to hide from attacks coming from the sky. That was when Katie Williams did something that would be remembered in military history. Books for generations. She climbed to the roof of the main building, carrying the captured alien heavy weapon, and began shooting at the fighter craft. The sight of a 16-year-old girl standing on a rooftop, firing an alien plasma cannon at enemy aircraft, sent a shock through both the human and alien forces. One of the fighters exploded under her accurate fire. The other 2 retreated quickly, but the aliens had one more surprise planned. General Crickstal had been watching the battle through drone cameras, and he was amazed by what he saw. These human children fought with a skill and determination that surpassed many of his veteran soldiers. But he also saw something else that gave him an idea. "Deploy the capture nets," he ordered. The capture nets were a Zephyrian technology designed for taking prisoners alive. They were energy fields that could be fired from a distance and would wrap around targets, paralyzing them without causing permanent harm. The alien soldiers began firing the nets at the cadets. Amy watched in horror as Danny was caught by one of the energy fields and collapsed, unable to move. Then Katie was captured while trying to reload the heavy weapon. One by one, her fellow cadets were being taken prisoner. "All units fall back to the main building," Amy ordered, but it was too late. The aliens had surrounded them completely, and now they had weapons specifically designed to capture rather than kill. Amy herself was caught by a capture. net just as she was trying to reach the building's entrance. The energy field wrapped around her like invisible chains, and she fell to the ground, conscious but unable to move. Within an hour, 37 of the Academy's cadets were prisoners of the Zephyrian Empire. Only 6 had managed to escape through the deepest tunnels, and they were now hiding in the old mining complex. General Crixtal watched the captured humans being loaded onto transport ships. Most were unconscious from the capture nets, but a few were awake and still trying to resist, even though they could not move. "Excellent," he said to his staff. "Now we broadcast our demands to the colony. It will surrender within the hour to save their young." The broadcast went out on all human communication channels. General Crixtal appeared on every screen in the colony, with the captured cadets visible behind him. "People of New Haven," the alien general announced, "we have captured your military academy and taken your young warriors prisoner. You have 1 hour to surrender completely, or we will begin executing them one by one." The response from Commander Morrison came immediately. "This is Commander Jake Morrison of the New Haven Defense Force." His voice was cold and steady. "We have received your message. Here is our response." What happened next shocked General Crixtal to his core. Instead of surrender negotiations, Morrison began coordinating the largest and most aggressive counterattack of the entire battle. Every human fighter in the system, every armed civilian, every person capable of holding a weapon, began moving toward the alien positions. Lieutenant Susan Davis, who'd been leading hit-and-run attacks all day, received new orders that made her smile grimly. "All units, this is Davis. New mission parameters. We are no longer fighting a defensive action. As of right now, we are going on the offensive." At the same time, the 6 cadets who had escaped were not hiding in fear, led by 15-year-old Pete Johnson. They were planning a rescue mission using the mining tunnels that connected to the alien landing zone, but the most shocking response came from the captured cadets themselves. Amy Chen, despite being paralyzed by the capture net, had managed to organize a resistance effort among the prisoners. Using hand signals and whispered communications, she was coordinating sabotage attempts from inside their holding area. General Crixtal watched the human response with growing confusion and alarm. Taking their young was supposed to end the war. Instead, it seemed to have made every human in the colony 10 times more dangerous. "General," his communications officer reported nervously, "we are receiving multiple incoming transmissions from other human colonies. They are demanding the immediate release of the prisoners." "Other colonies?" Crixtal's voice showed his surprise. "How do they know what is happening here?" "The humans have been broadcasting everything, sir. The capture of their young is now known throughout human space." Crixtal stared at the tactical display as new contacts began appearing at the edge of the system. Ships were arriving, lots of them, and they were all heading directly for New Haven. For the first time since the battle began, General Crixtal began to wonder if he had made a terrible mistake. General Crixtal paced back and forth on his command ship's bridge, staring at the tactical display with growing alarm. What should have been a simple victory was turning into a nightmare. Instead of surrendering to save their captured young, the humans were fighting harder than ever. "General," his communications officer called out, "we have an incoming priority transmission from Supreme Admiral Vextel." Crixtal felt his stomach tighten. The Supreme Admiral only contacted field commanders when something had gone very wrong. He straightened his uniform and activated the communication link. The image of Supreme Admiral Vextel appeared on the main screen. The ancient alien's face looked grim, his large eyes filled with what appeared to be genuine fear. "General Crixtal," the Admiral's voice carried across space, "I have been monitoring your situation. Tell me you did not do what the reports suggest." "I captured the enemy's young warriors to force a surrender," Crixtal replied, confused. By his superior's tone was a sound, tactical decision. "Show me the prisoners," Vextel ordered. Crixtal switched the display to show the holding area where the captured cadets were being kept. Most were still paralyzed by the capture nets, but some were awake and alert. Amy Chen was visible in the center, her eyes bright with defiance, even though she could not move. Admiral Vextel stared at the image for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was filled with horror. "You fool! the Admiral said slowly. You took their children? We're doomed. Sir, I don't understand, Crystal replied. Taking enemy offspring is a standard tactic for forcing surrender. Every species protects their young above all else. It's not like this, Vexel said, his voice growing more urgent. General, in my 300 years of military service, I have conquered 47 different worlds. I've studied every known intelligent species in this galaxy. And there is one rule that every successful commander learns. Never, ever harm the young of a species that fights to protect them. Crystal was still confused. But sir, that is exactly why the tactic works. They surrender to protect their offspring. Listen to me carefully, Admiral Vextel said, leaning forward on the screen. Look at those prisoners again. How old are they? Between 14 and 18 of their years, Crystal replied. And they were fighting your trained soldiers? Yes, sir. Quite effectively, actually. General, do you understand what this means? The Admiral's voice was rising. These are not helpless children. These are warriors. Young warriors, but warriors. Nonetheless, you have just declared war on their entire species by taking them prisoner. Crystal looked at the captured cadets again, beginning to understand. But they are not fully mature. In our society, beings of this age would still be in the protection chambers. Our society is not their society, Vextel said grimly. Show me the current tactical situation. Crystal switched the display to show the battle around New Haven Colony. What he saw made his blood run cold. Human forces were converging on his positions from every direction. Civilian ships had been converted into warships. Mining vessels were approaching with improvised weapons. Even luxury passenger liners were heading toward the battle, packed with volunteer fighters. Admiral Crystal's tactical officer reported. Long-range sensors are detecting multiple human fleets approaching from other systems. We count at least 200 ships. Admiral Vextel nodded slowly. It has begun. General, you need to understand what you have done. Other species. Most races fight for territory, for resources, for conquest. Humans fight for their families. And you have just threatened the most precious thing in their entire civilization. But sir, if I release the prisoners, it is too late for that. Vexel interrupted. You have crossed a line that cannot be uncrossed. Every human in known space now sees you as a threat to their children. They will not stop fighting until you are destroyed or driven away completely. On the planet's surface, the Admiral's words were proving true. Commander Morrison was coordinating the largest military operation in New Haven's history. But it was not just military personnel involved. Every parent, every teacher, every person who had ever cared for a child was joining the fight. Lieutenant Susan Davis was leading a combined force of colonists and off-duty miners in an assault on the alien landing zone, a radio crackled with. Reports from dozens of different groups, all moving toward the same target. Davis, this is Peterson. My construction crew has the aliens pinned down in Sector 12. We're using the excavators to dig them out of their positions. Copy that, Peterson. Johnson, what's your status? Johnson here. My team of mechanics has captured 3 alien vehicles. We're learning how to use their weapons. The coordination was remarkable. People who had never worked together before were operating like a single, unified force. They shared equipment, covered each other's advances, communicated with an efficiency that amazed even Morrison. But the most surprising development was happening in the mining tunnels beneath the colony. The 6 cadets who had escaped capture were not just hiding, led by 15-year-old Pete Johnson. They had spent hours studying the tunnel maps and planning a rescue operation that would make professional soldiers proud. Okay, listen up, Pete whispered to his team as they crouched in a tunnel directly. Beneath the alien holding facility, Sarah and Mark will create a distraction on the east side. Lisa and Tony will take out the guards. Chris and I will get the prisoners out through the tunnel system. 14-year-old Sarah Kim checked her improvised explosive device. Pete, are you sure this will work? It has to work, Pete replied. There are friends up there. We don't leave anyone behind. The rescue operation began just as Admiral Vextel was explaining to General Crystal why the situation was hopeless. In my studies of human behavior, the Admiral continued, I have learned that they have a saying, it takes a village to raise a child. This means that all human adults consider themselves responsible for all human children, not just their own offspring. That seems inefficient, Crystal observed. Perhaps, but it also means that when you threaten any human child, you threaten all of them. Every human parent now sees your actions as a direct threat to their own families. As if to prove the Admiral's point, explosions began echoing through the alien holding facility. The escaped cadets had begun their rescue mission. It was working better than anyone had expected. Pete Johnson and Chris Miller emerged from a tunnel directly inside the holding area, catching the alien guards completely by surprise. At the same time, Sarah Kim's explosives created chaos on the other side of the facility, drawing most of the guards away from the prisoners. "Amy, can you move?" Teet asked as he began cutting through the energy net that held his fellow cadet. Feeling back, Amy replied as the capture field deactivated. "How many guards are left?" "Lisa and Tony are handling them," Chris said, helping Katie Williams to her feet. "But we need to move fast." Within minutes, most of the captured cadets were free and moving through the tunnel system towards safety. But Amy Chen had other ideas.
"Pete,
take the others to the rendezvous point," she ordered. "Danny, Katie, and I are going to cause some problems for our hosts before we leave." "Amy, that's too dangerous," Pete protested. "We're not just escaping," Amy said firmly. "We're sending a message." What happened next would become legend among human military forces. Instead of simply fleeing, Amy Chen led a small team of recently freed prisoners in an attack on the alien command center inside the facility. Using captured alien weapons and their knowledge of the building's layout, they destroyed critical equipment and captured important intelligence before making their escape. When General Crystal received reports of the prison break, he turned to Admiral Vextel with desperation in his voice. "Admiral, what do I do? How do I end this?" Supreme Admiral Vextel looked at his subordinate with something approaching pity. "General Crystal, you asked me earlier about the nature of human warfare. Let me tell you what I have learned. Most species fight until they achieve their goals or until the cost becomes too high. Humans fight until they win or until they are all dead. And when you threaten their children, they prefer death to defeat." The Admiral paused, looking at the tactical display showing hundreds of human ships converging on New Haven. "You have awakened something in the humans that you cannot control and cannot defeat. My advice is simple. Retreat now, while you still can. Because if you stay, none of your forces will leave this system alive." But even as the Admiral spoke, both he and Krikstal knew it was already too late. The human fleet was almost within weapons range. And they were not coming to negotiate. They were coming to show the galaxy what happened to anyone who dared to harm human children. Fleet Admiral John Patterson stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching as the largest human fleet in history dropped out of hyperspace around New Haven. 237 ships had answered the call. From military, vessels too converted cargo haulers to luxury liners packed with volunteer fighters. "Admiral, we have contact with Commander Morrison," reported his communications officer. "The Liberty's Edge is still operational and coordinating ground forces." "Put him through," Patterson ordered. Morrison's face appeared on the main screen, showing the wear and exhaustion of 12 hours of continuous combat. Behind him, the bridge of his small patrol ship showed battle damage and emergency lighting. "Admiral Patterson, thank you for coming," Morrison said. "The situation is worse than we reported. The aliens have been using our people as prisoners, including children from the military academy." Patterson's face hardened. He had children of his own and grandchildren at the Naval Academy back on Earth. Status of the prisoners? Most have been rescued by our ground forces, but the aliens still hold some of our people. They're using them as shields. "Understood. We're going to end this, Morrison, today." The human fleet spread out in a formation that impressed even the alien observers. Despite coming from different colonies and different military traditions, they moved with coordinated precision. Merchant captains followed orders from naval officers. Civilian volunteers took positions alongside veteran pilots. General Crystal watched the approaching human fleet with growing panic. 40 ships were outnumbered more than 5-1, and the humans were showing no signs of wanting to negotiate. "General," his tactical officer reported, "the humans are not responding to our surrender offers." "What do you mean?" Crystal demanded. "We've transmitted multiple offers to discuss terms for ending hostilities. The humans are ignoring all our communications." Crystal tried to contact Admiral Patterson directly. When the human fleet commander appeared on screen, his face showed cold determination. "I am General Crystal of the Zephyrian Empire," the alien began. "I wish to discuss terms for ending this conflict." "There are no terms," Patterson replied simply. "Release all prisoners immediately and withdraw from this system. You have 10 minutes. Surely we can reach some agreement. 9 minutes. In 50 seconds, Patterson interrupted. The transmission ended, leaving Crystal staring at a blank screen. On the planet's surface, the final phase of the battle was beginning. Amy Chen, now reunited with her fellow cadets, was leading a combined force of Academy students and adult volunteers in an assault on the remaining alien positions. "Remember," Amy said to her mixed team of teenagers and experienced colonists, "we're not just fighting for our colony. We're showing the galaxy that humans protect their own." The ground assault was unlike anything the aliens had ever faced. 17-year-old cadets worked alongside 50-year-old miners. Teenage girls operated heavy equipment while their teachers provided covering fire. The entire human community had become a single fighting force. Danny Rodriguez, now carrying an alien plasma rifle he had taken from an enemy soldier, was coordinating with civilian construction workers to clear alien defensive positions. "Wilson, can your excavator reach that bunker?" "You bet, son," replied the older man, who had taught Danny's mathematics class just a year ago. "Stand back and watch a real professional work." The excavator's massive arm punched through the alien fortification like it was made of paper. The enemy soldiers inside surrendered immediately, overwhelmed by the relentless human advance. But the most dramatic action was happening in space. Admiral Patterson had divided his fleet into 3 groups. The first group, led by the Defiant, would engage the alien fleet directly. The second group would provide support and rescue any human ships that got into trouble. The third group, consisting mostly of civilian vessels, would land troops too. Help with the ground assault. All ships. "This is Admiral Patterson." His voice went out over the fleet communication system. "Today we show the galaxy what happens when someone threatens human children. No mercy, no retreat, no surrender." The space battle began when the 10 minutes expired and the aliens had not withdrawn. Patterson's fleet moved forward in perfect formation, their weapons charging. General Crystal, desperate to avoid complete destruction, made one final mistake. He ordered his ships to use the remaining human prisoners as human shields. Broadcasting images of the captured colonists to try to stop the human attack, the response was immediate and devastating. Instead of hesitating, every human ship in the fleet opened fire at once. But their targeting was so precise, so carefully coordinated, that they managed to destroy alien weapons and engines while avoiding the areas where prisoners were being held. "Impossible," Crystal breathed as he watched his ships being systematically disabled. "How are they targeting so accurately?" His tactical officer provided the answer. "Sir, they're using information from the escaped prisoners. The young humans who broke out of our facility mapped our entire ship layout. They know exactly where everything is located." Amy Chen's intelligence gathering during her brief captivity was now being used to save lives and win the battle. Every alien ship design, every weapon placement, every critical system had been memorized and reported by the escaped cadets. The battle lasted less than an hour. One by one, the alien ships were disabled, their crews forced to surrender. The few ships that tried to flee were chased down by human fighters and forced to return. But the most significant moment came. When Crystal's command ship was surrounded by human vessels, Admiral Patterson himself led a boarding party to accept the alien surrender. "General Crystal," Patterson said as he stepped onto the alien bridge, "you are now a prisoner of the New Haven Defense Force. I demand to be treated according to galactic law." Crystal replied. "You will be treated exactly as well as you treated our people," Patterson said coldly. "Our children, especially." The alien general finally understood the magnitude of his error. Admiral, I did not know. In our culture, the young do not fight, did not understand that your offspring were warriors. Now you know, Patterson replied. And soon, every species in the galaxy will know. The aftermath of the Battle of New Haven became a turning point in human relations with alien civilizations. The footage of teenage cadets fighting alongside their teachers, of parents and children working together to defend their home, spread throughout known space. Within weeks, Supreme Admiral Vextel issued what became known as the Human Doctrine. Throughout the Zephyrian Empire, never engage human forces in their home systems. Never threaten human families. Never underestimate a species that teaches its children to fight for what they believe in. But the most important change was in how other species viewed humanity. Before the battle, humans were seen as a minor species, barely worth notice. After New Haven, they were recognized as one of the most dangerous civilizations in the galaxy, not because of their technology or their numbers, because of their unbreakable determination to protect their young. Amy Chen, promoted to lieutenant at age 17, stood with Admiral Patterson and Commander Morrison as they watched the reconstruction of New Haven. The colony was being rebuilt stronger than before, with new defenses and new alliances with other human worlds. Admiral Amy asked, "Do you think they'll try again?" Patterson looked at the young woman who had become a symbol of human courage throughout the galaxy. "I don't think so, Lieutenant. Word is spreading about what happened here. Any species that thinks about threatening human children will remember New Haven." Morrison nodded. "The aliens learned something important here. They learned that when you threaten our kids, you're not just fighting our military, you're fighting our entire civilization. And that's one fight nobody wants to pick," Patterson added. As the three of them watched the sunset over New Haven, they knew that the galaxy had changed forever. Humanity had announced its presence not with conquest or expansion, but with the simple message that some things were worth fighting for. The most important of those things was the future, embodied in every human child who learned to stand up for what was right. The lesson of New Haven spread throughout the galaxy. Humans were not just another species to be conquered. They were parents, teachers, and protectors who would burn down the stars themselves before they let harm come to their children, and the galaxy would never make the mistake of testing that resolve again.